Hello and welcome to another tutorial on how to use Mastodon. This time we're going to cover dealing with unwanted content on Mastodon, which is to say reporting, blocking, muting, other tools that are available, as well as managing word filters and managing your notifications. We're going to start with reporting. So as you may or may not know, Mastodon, unlike a traditional social media platform, isn't just a single website. It's more of a network of different servers operated by individual server administrators, and each one has complete and absolute control over their own system. So when you make an account on Mastodon, you choose a server to have your account on, and that server, managed by the server administrator, is managing everything related to your account, such as what content is available to you and what rules are enforced for content that you see. To find out who is managing your server, you can go to the bottom of the page on the left side and click About. You will see a big sign saying Administered by, linking to a Mastodon account. Now, the demo account that I have here for this video is on one of our official servers. So in this particular scenario, it is Mastodon, the company that develops the software, that is managing this server. Nevertheless, on every server that exists on Mastodon, you will find this information, and usually it is a person, sometimes it is an organization, but in most cases you can just go and approach them and tell them about your problems. You can also scroll down and see what rules exist for the server. You will find a list of rules with a general description of the rule and then any kind of more detailed description below. So generally speaking, these are the rules that will be enforced on the server. That being said, there are some unwritten rules usually for things that are self-evident, such as, illegal content, spam, and so on and so forth. So usually the rules mention stuff that is a bit more above the baseline level. I must also mention that for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be demonstrating various tools such as reporting, muting, blocking, and I'm going to be doing that on absolutely innocent accounts that I come across the interface, because it's really not about who, but more about how. So please don't take any offense if you're in this video, and don't think that any account that I show on here is worth actually blocking, muting, reporting, or anything else whatsoever. This is all just for demonstration purposes. Anyhow, moving on to the topic of how to report content, which we're already on actually, but now that I'm back here, if you see something that you think is breaking the rules or the law, you can click on the three dots on the bottom of the post and find this red option called Report. You click Report and a screen appears. Now, filling out this form is going to help the moderators that are managing your server to better handle whatever it is you're reporting. So if it's something that is, for example, breaking the law, might be, illegal content, then choosing this option will allow the moderators to sort of prioritize it. And if it's spam, equally is going to allow the moderators to manage at what pace and how to prioritize this as well. If the post in question violates some specific server rule that you want to specify further, you can choose this option and then select which rules of the server you think this content is violating. Now, let's say it's violating these three. This is just for, demonstration purposes. You can then, on the next screen, select more examples. You will be shown more posts from this account, and you can just check if any further posts further illustrate what the problem is. Then on the final screen, you can fill out any additional information you want to pass on to the moderators, and It can be in any format that you want. You can write whatever you want here. If the account that you're reporting is originally from a different server, like in this particular case where it says that this account is from writing.exchange, which is another Mastodon server, then you can additionally pass on the report to that other server, writing.exchange. And in most scenarios, this is useful because the moderators of your server and the moderators of their server will both be notified and both be able to take action. In fact, when action is taken at the origin of an account, it takes precedence over every other action taken on other servers. So to put it in simpler terms, if an account is banned from Writing Exchange, then the moderators of other servers don't have to ban it because it's already banned. You see my point? So if the server you're reporting to is a good-natured server that is taking care of its own of enforcement of its own rules, then it is a good idea to forward the report always and let them handle it while your moderators also handle the local copy of the report. However, if you think that the server the account is from may be a malicious actor of some sort, if you think that it is a breeding ground of rule-breaking behavior, then it's kind of pointless to report to them because they're not going to take action on it, and you might as well skip it and uncheck that box. Anyhow, I'm not going to submit this report because I don't want to spam the moderators with demonstration reports. However, I'm going to demonstrate some other paths through this window, which is if you cannot find what other reason or specific rule this content violates, you can check it's something else, and you can also select multiple examples, and then you can just go straight to this field where you can input your specific concerns with the account. And from then on, it's handled absolutely the same. Once you've submitted the report, you do not get any feedback on whether it's been processed, so don't expect to hear back. The moderators will either take action on it, and then you might notice the account is gone or the post is gone. There's actually a variety of different things that moderators on Mastodon can do in response to reports. And perhaps I should go over them. So one of the most basic things is that they can delete the offending post. And usually when this happens, a warning is sent to the account that made the post saying something like, you've broken the rules and this is strike one. Please don't do it again because something worse might happen if you do it again. The next option that can happen is that the moderators can limit the account. The account will then be sort of hidden from people who aren't already following it, and anyone who comes across it from direct searches will see a big warning saying this account has been limited by the moderators of so-and-so, and do you really want to see it? And the next level of escalation is a suspension. By that point, the whole account is gone. And for each of these actions, the account can appeal, and some of these actions can be undone. They're not irreversible. Accounts that are suspended can be restored within 30 days from suspension, after which the content from the account is permanently deleted. Anyhow, so that's reporting, and that's what you can expect from reporting accounts. However, reporting is for when account is breaking rules, when something is breaking rules and misbehaving in a way that requires external intervention. Reporting is important because Mastodon does not have any algorithmic or automated tools for detecting content. On other contemporary platforms, maybe there are bots running around deciding who needs to be banned. On Mastodon, it's all humans. It's all humans and human decisions. So if you see something that breaks the rules, you need to notify the moderators, otherwise they're not going to see it. So it's really important that you do. That being said, also make sure that what you're reporting actually breaks the rules, because if not, then you're just wasting the moderator's time. Okay, now truly moving on from the reporting function. What other things can you do after you report, or if reporting is not the right thing to do? Well, you can always mute an account. When you mute an account, what happens is, first of all, they don't know that they've been muted. There's no way for them to tell. So this is a completely hidden function that only affects yourself. And it basically removes all of their posts from where you can see them. So for example, if you're following them, if you're actually a follower of them, you can mute them and you'll still be a follower, but they will not appear on your home feed. You will also not see any posts that mention them. So any post that addresses them in the text of the post will also be hidden. And you will not see it. And if they try to send you a message, you will also not see it. You will not see any notifications from that person. So if you're looking at a thread between other people, you will not see their posts. Like anywhere on Mastodon, you will not see their posts. However, you actually have some options here to customize this a little bit. If you, on the screen, if you click on Show Options, you'll find that there's actually a way to set this up so that the mute is temporarily limited. So you can mute somebody for only 24 hours and then they are automatically unmuted. And you can also decide if you actually want to mute them from your notifications or not. If you uncheck this, then if they write a post that mentions you, or favorite your post, or follow you or whatever, you will actually still get a notification about it. But from your home feed and other feeds, trending tab and so on, they will be hidden. So that's the mute option. It's really easy to undo as well. In fact, let me just demonstrate because this is a really harmless function. Okay, so I click the mute button. As you can see, the posts are immediately gone from my home feed. This is instant. And if I want to unmute this person later, then I click on More on the right side of the website in the navigation panel. I go on Muted Users. I see here is this person that I muted, and I can just click Unmute, and it's done. And if I misclicked by accident, I can click Mute again and redo it. But then, that account is no longer muted. The next thing that you can do is harsher. It is called a block. So if I try to block somebody, it does the same things ultimately that a mute does. So you will not see any of their posts anywhere, and you will not see any posts that include them in the body of the post. However, also, they will not be able to view your profile as long as they're logged in, and they will not be able to see your posts as well, as long as they're logged in. This can always be circumvented by, logging out, opening your profile in a private window. As long as you're making a public profile and posting public things, you can't really stop somebody who's logged out from looking at it. However, within the confines of the system of, people logging in and interacting with Mastodon in a normal way, it stops them from seeing you. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't remember if there are any important options here. No, there are no options. This is just further clarifying that essentially this function can in theory be circumvented. They can still find ways around to view your content, but for the most part, this hides them from you. And in a way, it also sends a message, right? Because when you're muting somebody, you're moving on without letting them know that they've done something wrong. When you're blocking somebody, if they try to look at your profile, they will see you are blocked, and maybe it is a signal to them that they should change their behavior. I don't know. There are different reasons and different ways that people use these functions and how they intend for the signal to land or not to land at all. Sometimes this part is not, not necessary, but that's how it is. Anyhow, I am not going to block. But essentially, if I blocked this account and I wanted to unblock it again, I would go under More, and I would go under Block Users, and it would appear there, and I could just click Unblock. Now, some people on other platforms like to use something called soft blocking, which is you block somebody and then quickly unblock them because you just want to remove them as a follower. You don't want them to follow you anymore, but you don't actually want to keep them blocked because they haven't done anything wrong. On Mastodon, you don't need to do that because every person who follows you, and now I need to check if this account is followed by anyone. Yes, they are. Okay. So any person that follows you, you could go on their profile, you can open this menu, under the three dots, and you can remove follower. So instead of having to do the block, unblock manually, you can just click remove follower and you're done. It removes them as a follower. They can still follow you again, which is the same as if you self-block them on a different platform, but essentially saves you some time and some hassle. Next on, let's say you're coming across more than one account that is just not to your liking, misbehaving, something is wrong with it, and you find it again and again, it is this part of their username at the end after the second @ that is the problem. Let's say for purposes of example that it is this dgpress.club. Maybe you research a little bit and you find out that their rules are basically no rules, everything allowed, and you don't want to see any account from that server in your feeds, in trending, anywhere anymore. What you can do is you can click on these three dots again and use the option at the bottom called block domain, and then it will say the name of the domain the account is from. So block domain DigiPress Club. And again, the screen will actually explain to you everything that will happen when you do this. So if you had any followers from that server, or if you were following any people from that server, it's going to warn you that you're going to lose them. Basically, every follower that you had will unfollow you, and you will obviously unfollow every person you used to follow whose account is on that server. They will not know that they've been blocked. In that sense, it's more like a mute, but they will not be able to follow you again from that server. And you will not see any posts from that server anywhere in your home feed, in trending, in conversations, in notifications. You will never see any content from that server. However, they will be able to see some of your posts still. So it acts more like a mute in that sense, but you will lose the followers and people you follow. So if there's 0 and 0, like, it doesn't matter. You can go ahead. This is a bit of a nuclear option. And you do need to be careful about this and maybe do a little bit of research about what the server actually is and what their rules are before you do this, and evaluate whether it really necessitates this kind of action. Because I have, in my history of being on Mastodon, heard many stories of people by accident blocking a big server, like, for example, Mastodon Social, by complete accident, because some third-party apps that people use to access Mastodon don't show a screen with a warning like this, and it's easy to misclick that in a different app. And then they just lose like 3,000 followers or 20,000 followers, and suddenly it's like, oh, what have I done? How do I undo this? And at that point, of course, you cannot easily undo it anymore. You have to ask people. You have to say like, oh, I'm sorry, I clicked this by accident. Can you refollow me, please? And so on and so forth. And of course, it's a big hassle. So you need to be sure that this is the right thing to do before you do it. But once you do it, again, it can be undone, but it will not restore your followers. But you can remove the block in the future. Again, you would go on more on the right side of the screen. You would go on block domains, and you can just click unblock here. So that covers reporting, and that covers muting, blocking, and blocking domains. Now, the next topic is going to be a bit more interesting, perhaps, because the next topic covers word filters. And word filters is how you can customize Mastodon to your liking. We all have things that we like and things that we dislike, and when you follow other people, it's always a mix. Not everybody posts 100% of everything that you like, and sometimes you have to filter things out. And of course, people can't put content warnings on their posts if they're writing about spoilers or something upsetting. But sometimes what is upsetting to them is not what's upsetting to you, or what's upsetting to you is not upsetting to them. Mastodon has a system that allows you to define keywords and phrases and automatically hide or put content warnings on posts that match those keywords or phrases. Let me demonstrate. To access this function, you would click on More on the right side of the screen. Again, if you're on mobile and you have a different layout, this will be in the menu that comes out from the right side. If you're using a third-party app, then I have no idea where it is because I'm not responsible for those. Anyway, you click on More and you select the Muted Words function. This will open a new tab in your browser and will take you to this page. To create a new one, you add a new filter. You can name it whatever you want. This is basically what you see. If you decide to make it put a content warning on things, this will be the content warning. So let's say for purposes of demonstration, I want to filter out all dog content from Mastodon. I don't want to see any dogs. I'm a cat person. That's not real. I don't hate dogs, but just for the purposes of an example, I will call this filter dogs. And if I wanted this filter to be temporary, I could select some timeline here. I could say, this filter should exist for a week or a day. And when is this useful? Let's say instead of filtering out dogs, I'm filtering out Eurovision. And I only want to filter it out when it's going on. So in that scenario, I would filter it for like a week. And afterwards, further discussions of Eurovision may be okay, but during it, I don't want to hear about it. But let's go back to my dogs example, and let's never make it expire. Then you can select where do you want these filters to apply. In this area, we're dealing with something called context, which is basically in which part of Mastodon should this filter apply. So these contexts are the home feed and your list feeds, which is considered a single context because they're basically the same thing in a way. Your notifications, public timelines, which is if you're browsing a hashtag, that's considered a public timeline. Conversations, which is when you're viewing a thread, like a specific post and replies to it, and profiles, when you're viewing profiles. So far, this is, I think, pretty self-explanatory, or at least I have explained what they are. So you can just check all of them if that's what you want. Then you can select what does the filter do, and there are three options here. You can either put a content warning on the post, which is the first option. You can, instead of putting a whole content warning in it, you can just hide the media attachments in the post. So the media will be blurred out and you need to click to view it, but there will not be like a spoiler warning on the whole post. Or you can hide the post completely and then it will not appear altogether, just completely filter it out. But you will not even know that the post was there. That option is a bit more nuclear and I don't necessarily like using it. Personally, I stick with the first option because I think it's the most useful actually, because it allows me to filter out stuff, but also gives me some agency over if I still want to see like what is it? What is it about? Like maybe it's something important, but maybe it's actually a type of weakness that allows me to sort of make the filter less useful for myself. But okay, let's move on. So once you have selected what you want the filter to do, it's time to define what are the keywords and phrases that should trigger the filter. Now, I'm going to use as an example a couple of hashtags that I know people use on their dog posts. So one of those is going to be dogs of Mastodon. I can write it in here, and then I can add another one, and I'll call it Saturday. Saturday is like the alternative to Catterday. The Catterday is the tradition of posting cats on Saturday, and Saturday is the knockoff version where you post dogs instead. Now, you will notice that besides these text fields, there's another checkbox called whole word. What does whole word mean? Well, it means that this keyword or phrase should be treated as an individual word rather than as a part of text. Let me explain it slightly better. If I have whole word checked and there is a word that includes the word that I have written here. Okay, these are bad examples because they're quite long and unique, but let's say I add a third option called just dog, and I uncheck this. Now, if somebody writes hot dog, one word, it will be matched by this keyword. But if I click whole word, it will not be matched because dog in hot dog is not surrounded by spaces or other boundaries. So whole word is looking for the word to either be at the beginning of a sentence, end of a sentence, or surrounded by spaces or commas or periods or other, markers in the text. Whereas if you uncheck it, it will be just matched wherever dog exists. It will be matched even if it's part of a different word. Okay, hopefully now I have explained it in a better way. So not using whole word is definitely a little bit of a more risky option because you can have a lot of false positives. If you want to learn more about this, look up the Scunthorpe problem on Wikipedia. But it does give you the control over, for example, these don't have to be hashtags. They could be phrases, they could be just sentences, or they could be like web links or domains. Like I could filter out all of YouTube, and then if I uncheck whole word, then it will match anything that appears within a link. So anything like HTTPS, youtube.com/watch, blah, 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 it will be matched by this. So it gives you a lot of power over how you want this stuff to work. But yeah, anyhow, let's restore this to dogs of Mastodon. And by the way, I am capitalizing this, but the filters don't care about uppercase, lowercase. It will match anything here. Okay, so once you've done filling this in, you can click Save New Filter, and your new filter will be active. And it should actually apply in your home feed almost immediately. Now, the problem is I don't actually know if there are any dog-related posts in this account's home feed, so I don't think I can demonstrate what it looks like. And of course, my own posts will be exempt from the filter. It will not apply to my own stuff. And it will not apply to your own stuff either, because that would be pointless. I'm going to say that I'm going to create a filter with AI just because I see a post mentioning AI just, at the top of the feed. So it will be a very easy demonstration. So talks about AI, home, hide with a warning, and then just AI, save new filter. Very simple because I just want to demonstrate it. And then I'm going to refresh the page. And as you can see, now this post that used to mention AI is now displayed with this content warning that says matches filter talks about AI. And I can click it and the post is now displayed, and I can hide it again if I want to. And there you go. That is the filtering system of Mastodon. The last part that I want to talk about is managing your notifications, because notifications is another area where unwanted content could easily appear, especially if you write something that goes viral or woolly or whatever you want to call it on Mastodon, because attention always comes with drawbacks. Most of the responses will be positive, but occasionally there is a troll, and sometimes it's bad enough they break rules, and sometimes it's just skirting on the edge where moderators cannot take action, but they definitely deserve a block or something where you don't want to see it. So if you go to notifications, you will see that the notification screen actually has a button on the right called Show Settings. So once you click this, it will show you a whole new section of settings related to your notifications. There's actually a couple of options here that might be useful for you to customize. One of those options is actually a button called Clear Notifications. If you ever find that your notification screen is just full of stuff that you want to get rid of, you want a clean, blank slate, you can click it, and it is irreversible, I have to warn you. It will remove all of those notifications, and you will never have them again. You will only have anything that comes from that point onwards. But then the main section is actually this notification filter system. Based on these 5 criteria, you can decide what happens to notifications. The first criteria is people you don't follow. So if a notification comes from a person that you're not already following, you can decide whether you accept the notification, whether it should be filtered, or whether it should be ignored. Now, what does it mean? So by default, notifications from all of these are accepted. However, if you click on filter, what will happen is that you will get a little banner above your notifications that will say something like 1 or 2 notifications from people you might know. And you can click on that, and it's basically a second inbox. It's kind of like the junk or spam folder in your email client. So you can go there and you can still see what people sent you, but it's behind a second sort of screen instead of being right at the front. So you can do this for people that you don't follow. You can do this for people who are not following you. So for example, if you're receiving a lot of comments from people who don't even know you and you want to hide all of that, you can do that. You can do this for people who have created their account within the last 30 days. So accounts that are considered fresh. That's a way to, it's kind of a double-edged sword because you're excluding people who are potentially like new users and are trying to find their way on Mastodon, but also you are excluding potentially troll accounts made specifically to troll. And then the penultimate option is unsolicited private mentions. Now, if you've watched the first episode of this series of tutorials, you'll know what a private mention is. And an unsolicited private mention is one that is basically not responding to you. So if it's somebody just writing a fresh message and decides to make it a private mention and send it to you, that's unsolicited, and you can filter those if you want. However, if they're responding to your post that is already like talking to them, then this will not be affected by the filter. So it's not like blocking conversations that you're having with people. It is really an unsolicited private mentions filter. And then the last option, which is the only one that's filtered by default, is called moderated accounts. Now, if you remember back in the section where I was talking about what can be done to accounts by moderators, one of those things is they can limit the account so it's kind of hidden from everyone who isn't already following the account. And this option is what controls that when it comes to notifications. So if you think that you know better than the moderators of your server, which, you know, it's not completely implausible, it all depends. Mastodon is a big ecosystem. The Fediverse is an even bigger ecosystem. There's lots of things, lots of different setups going on. You can decide that you want to see them, and then you can. And if you want to just send them to the void, you can also do that. Now, sending notifications to the void is basically irreversibly hiding them. I mean, hiding is probably the wrong word here because it's irreversible. It's deleting them irreversibly. Same as clear notifications. So you'll never be able to undo it. And, you know, if you miss something important, it's gone. But sometimes it's the right thing to do. So it's completely up to you. And then below that, you just have all the display options for your notifications. Like one of the options, for example, is this quick filter bar, which is what you see over here. So you actually see that it's showing every single notification type separately as an icon, which is, I don't think it's on by default, but I'm not 100% sure. But either way, you control it with this option. You can uncheck display all categories, and then you have all and mentions. And this is the one that I use, and I find it the most useful because mentions is the one notification type that you most often want to go back to and look through them specifically. Whereas all is like, yeah, everything else is just here in one bucket. But if you want like to have this granular control and find poll results specifically, then this is the way to go. And of course, whenever you're using this all column, you can also control which notifications do appear in it, because every notification type is listed here and has 3 options associated with it. So one, whether to show you desktop notifications, which is to say a desktop notification is that little alert that appears in your operating system, even if you're not tabbed in to the browser that shows Mastodon, or maybe even if Mastodon is closed. So you can turn these on if you want to be, let's say, notified about, let me see, where's mentions. If you want to be notified about mentions, you can decide whether they're shown, and you can decide whether they play a sound when a new one appears. So you can disable sounds for individual notifications. Personally, I leave the sound on for mentions and nothing else, but this is, again, completely up to you. And that's almost it. Now, there's one more thing where you can control an aspect of notifications, which is less related to dealing with unwanted content and more with notifications themselves, which, you know, while we're at it, might as well cover. If you click on preferences on the right side over here, and then click on email notifications, you can decide which of these notifications generate an email to your email inbox. So you see it even if you're not currently on Mastodon. Now, by default, the way this works actually is, even if you have this checked, if you have Mastodon open at the time that you receive the notification, an email will not be sent. This is to save emails, because sending emails is actually, it costs money, but also to prevent spamming your inbox for stuff that you see anyway. If for some reason you want to always be sent an email notification, even if you're logged in and see it live, you can check this option and then it will always send an email. And of course, you know, you can decide which ones you want emails for and which ones don't. Don't forget to press save changes on this page when you change something. And now truly we are done with this topic. If there is something here that you want to know that I haven't answered in this video, please comment below the video and I'll try to answer it in the comments. I thank you very much for watching and wish you the best of luck on Mastodon. Goodbye.